Hi everyone, my name's Scotty and I'm a senior visual designer here at RocketMill. And today I'm going to tell you that you're going to fail. Now let's look at the definition of failure. Lack of success. Not very positive. And then when you look in the dictionary, the sentence that it gives you is an economic policy that is doomed to failure. Now that's a little bit dramatic, and that's coming from me. But failure is scary, you know, it's a genuine fear in people. And it can get us down when it actually happens. And there's a strong possibility that you are going to fail. But that's okay. We can actually overcome failure. You need to fail in order to succeed. Now, I love being a designer. You know, we get to take problems, solve them, whether it's improving a customer's journey through a checkout process, or whether you're improving the conversion on a form. It's often rewarding for us whenever things go well. You know, we celebrate when we win. We're happy, clients are happy, users are happy. It's all good. However, there are pitfalls in our journey to that reward. We often fail in our journey to get there, not even to mention what might happen whenever it does go live. And we can be quite hard on ourselves whenever that happens. As humans, we set our expectations incredibly high, and we should. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, you know? It's knowing that the higher you shoot, the harder that fall is going to be for you. Sometimes it doesn't go well. So let's cushion the fall. Let's break failure down. And this is how I see it. There are two types of failure. There's definitive failure and temporary failure. Definitive failure is a measurable failure. For example, when we put something live, we can measure that, be it through revenue. Temporary failure is something that occurs consistently throughout any process, and we need it to make progress. For example, the failures that we might encounter as designers to get to that end product. I'll go into that in more detail shortly. But the most important thing is, you've probably experienced failure at some point in your life. And you're not alone. You may recognize some of these faces on the screen. They're all incredibly successful in their industry. Entrepreneurs, inventors, but they've all failed somewhere along their journey to success. Let's take Walt Disney. He's an entrepreneur, animator, voice actor, and film producer. But one of his early ventures was an animation studio called Laugh-O-Gram, and they went bankrupt. And apparently, according to sources, Walt Disney was actually fired from a newspaper for not being creative enough. Now, this is a form of definitive failure. But this failure lit something in Walt Disney. You know, he learned from his failures, persevered with his passion, and he became an incredibly successfully creative person. Now, I'd love to have seen the editor's reaction whenever Disney hit the big time. You know, he epitomizes imagination and creativity. Let's look at another example, J.K. Rowling. You know, she encountered many failures before she even got to publishing her first book. This is how she had described failure. I had failed on an epic scale. An exceptionally short-lived marriage had imploded, and I was jobless, a lone parent, and as poor as it is possible to be in modern Britain without being homeless. The fears that my parents had had for me and that I had had for myself had both come to pass, and by every usual standard, I was the biggest failure I knew. Now, this is an example of temporary failure. You know, she had her emotional blockers and her inner demons that prevented her from doing her job. But there's more to her story. According to sources, she was rejected by 12 major publishing houses in the UK before landing a book deal. And the book deal came with a warning. The editor told her to get a day job because she wouldn't be able to make any money writing children's books. She proved everyone wrong, and thanks to her determination and persistence, The Boy Who Lived is a household name. Everyone knows who Harry Potter is, and she's leading in her industry. Her success story is incredible, and to me, she truly is an inspiration. But businesses fail too. KFC, they renewed a delivery contract. I'm sure you probably have all heard this story. It was in the news, it was everywhere. That new delivery contract resulted in KFC having no chicken up and down the country, so they had to close a number of their stores. Naturally, Twitter blew up. People thought the world was ending because they couldn't get their beloved fried chicken. People had to go to Burger King. But KFC managed to turn this around. After everything calmed down, a few days later, everything calmed down, stores were opening, people were getting their fried chicken. They put out this ad. Now, this ad went into 2 national newspapers and appeared only once in those newspapers. They received 1 billion impressions, and KFC owned their failure. People were initially mad that they couldn't get their fried chicken, but all was forgiven. KFC accepted their failure, made light of their mistakes, and people love KFC again. Now, I fail as a designer all the time. You know, we don't always get to the best idea right away. We have our struggles to get there. We may have a disinterest in what we're designing. Sometimes we receive pessimistic feedback, which can cause us to struggle and muddle through. But it's whenever we battle these failures, we can get to success. So here's how I battle mine, and maybe they'll help you. First one is acceptance. Now, without sounding all self-helpy here, you have to accept that you'll fail, and only then will you see it as a sense of liberation, and it'll help you move on to your new ideas much faster. Learn from your failures. Try to see failure as a rare opportunity to learn something new. At the very least, it'll teach you what not to do. So long as you don't repeat your mistakes, you'll never be afraid of making them. Learn about yourself. Few things teach us as much about ourselves as good as what failure will. It'll give you courage. It'll give you strength to keep going, no matter what life throws at you. And lastly, keep track of your failures. We remember our victories, but often forget our losses. But remember your failures too, to value them as experiences. It'll also remind you not to repeat them. So here's another quote from JK, and to me this is the epitome of failure. It is impossible to live without failing at something unless you live so cautiously that you might as well not have lived at all, in which case you fail by default. We all need to start seeing our failures as a step to success. Your failures could lead to building a creative legacy, or becoming an industry leader and inspiring others. What I've suggested is probably easier said than done. It's about that mentality to beat it. Just remember, you're not alone. We'll fail, then succeed together. Thank you.